Miljan Grujičić, murdered in cold blood.
Of course, it was a shock for me. The father of my children just gone.
A husband, but also a man with dangerous secrets.
Did he ever tell you about the Serbian Mafia?
No. He never told me about it, but there were signs.
Uncover the dark world of the Serbian Mafia and the killer who may finally face justice. On November 23, 2002, the Madonna nightclub in Offenbach is busy. The club is located right in the city center, on the Bahnhof Street. It is not even midnight yet, but already about 150 guests are inside Madonna. People are celebrating, dancing and laughing, until suddenly, several loud noises are heard from outside. Shortly after, a man runs into the club, panicked and asking for help. While the guests are enjoying their night, the owner is shot dead in the parking lot, and to this day, his murderer is still being sought. Miljan Grujičić lives in Offenbach, the fifth largest city in Hessen, Germany. He came to Germany from Montenegro in 1992 because of the Yugoslav wars. In 2002, he is 33 years old and has built a life for himself. He has been married for 8 years, but is rarely at home. Miljan works a lot. Together with business partners, he runs a nightclub called Madonna at Bahnhof Street 1416 in Offenbach. Back then, the club was well known beyond the region, and especially popular among visitors from the Balkans. There are frequent live music events, mostly featuring artists from the former Yugoslavia, organized by Miljan himself. Miljan sees himself as a successful businessman. People say he appears confident, sometimes even a bit arrogant. At Madonna, he not only ensures the guests have a good time, but also runs some illegal side businesses. Drug dealing and money laundering are part of daily life there. Later, Miljan starts working in the drug business on his own, something some of his family do not approve of. Many people worry about Miljan and his risky deals, but the 33-year-old dismisses their concerns. He insists he has everything under control. However, things change in the fall of 2002. Miljan acquires several weapons and even wears a bulletproof vest on some occasions. Why? No one knows for sure. Perhaps he had a dark premonition, or maybe he was directly threatened. After all, as mentioned before, Miljan does business with some rather shady individuals. At every business meeting, he carries a small black notebook where he writes important notes. He always keeps it with him, recording names, agreements, and deals. On November 23, 2002, Miljan is out in Frankfurt with business partners and friends. The group visits several venues. On that day, Miljan's wife is returning from Bosnia, where she had visited her family. Because of his work commitments, her husband did not accompany her. The two speak on the phone while she's traveling. During their conversation, Miljan mentions an argument. However, he does not say with whom or when it happened. Disagreements between partners can happen. Later, Miljan also starts his journey back to Offenbach. Together with his friend Ratko, he first drives to Madonna in his Ferrari. But on this Saturday evening, they only stay there for a short time. At his nightclub, Miljan swaps the Ferrari for his second car, a silver Mercedes-Benz CL500. Around 10 p.m., he starts driving home. Miljan says that he wants to watch the boxing match between Vitaly Klitschko and Larry Donald on TV that evening. Whether he really goes home to watch the fight or meets someone else is still unknown. At that time, Miljan's wife is also on her way home and is not there yet, so she cannot confirm whether Miljan really went to their apartment after 10 p.m. The only thing that is clear is that he leaves Madonna in his Mercedes around 10 p.m. But at 11:30 p.m., Miljan drives back to Madonna, where he spent the last 1.5 hours, and what he did remains a mystery. When he arrives at Madonna in his Mercedes, a witness sees him. The witness is a neighbor. His name was never made public. For simplicity, we will call him Max. Max sees something very important. At that time, Madonna shares its backyard with a bowling alley, a Greek restaurant, a parking deck, and several entrances to apartment buildings. Max lives in one of these apartment buildings. He stands by the window and sees Miljan drive into the parking lot behind Madonna and park his car. Then Max turns away from the window, and shortly after he hears a gunshot. 3 more shots follow. When Max looks out of the window again, he sees Miljan lying lifeless in the parking lot of his nightclub. Max immediately calls emergency services and runs outside. Miljan is lying on the asphalt covered in blood. Max then rushes into Madonna to get help, but nothing can be done for Miljan Grujičić. The 33-year-old is dead, shot in front of his own nightclub. If you enjoy my content, feel free to subscribe to my channel. Each case takes countless hours of research. Especially in this early stage of the channel, your support means a lot. Thanks everyone. Let's continue with the case. Investigators were able to narrow down the type of weapon that may have been used to shoot Miljan. They suspected a firearm from the Serbian manufacturer Zastava, either a 6.7mm or 7.0mm caliber. However, the murder weapon was never found. And it wasn't just the weapon that remained missing. Miljan's small black notebook where he kept important notes about his business and partners also disappeared. It seems likely that Miljan's attacker took the notebook, possibly because his name or the name of the mastermind behind the murder was written inside. Since Miljan was involved in illegal activities, it is suspected that some of the information in the notebook was highly sensitive and could have incriminated certain people. The police believed that the killer came from abroad and that Miljan's murder had been carefully planned. They assumed they were not only looking for a murderer, but also for the person who ordered the killing. One possibility was that Miljan's conflicts with shady business partners led to his murder. But the police also investigated the idea that the murder was ordered from Miljan's home country, Montenegro. Back in 1990, he was involved in a gang shootout. On his side, 2 men were killed. The shooter responsible was arrested and convicted. But by the time Miljan was murdered in Offenbach, the man had been released. That's why the police did not rule out the possibility that this old conflict had something to do with the crime. Another theory was that both motives were connected, meaning that the people Miljan was doing business with had joined forces with his old enemies from Montenegro to eliminate him. In an old book from 2004, published by Jürgen Roth, more details about the Miljan Grujičić case can be found. The book explores organized crime in Germany. It's important to note that while Jürgen Roth was recognized as an expert on Eastern Europe, he was also a controversial journalist. Some of the information he presented about Miljan's murder was definitely incorrect. For example, Roth gave the murder date as November 24, 2002. But in reality, Miljan was killed on November 23rd. He also spelled Miljan's name differently from all other sources. Still, Roth's book contains certain details that can be found nowhere else. We don't want to withhold this information from you, but we cannot verify how accurate or true it is. While the police describe the shootings in Montenegro as a conflict between 2 rival groups, Roth's book presents a different and much more detailed version of events. He wrote that in the late 1980s, Miljan and 3 other men committed a robbery in Montenegro. They had agreed to split the loot equally. However, one of the 4, a boy who was only 15 at the time, got nothing. According to Roth, the 15-year-old then got hold of a gun and killed 2 of the other 3 men. Only Miljan survived. Roth claimed that this young killer was released from prison in 2002. Afterward, he tracked Miljan down in Germany. Allegedly, Miljan offered him money or cars to leave him alone. But for the double murderer, it wasn't about money. It was about honor. He reportedly told people that Miljan would not live to see the end of the year. And that's exactly what happened. Again, the only source for this version of events is Jürgen Roth's book. Although the book contains a list of sources, there is no proof to support these specific claims. What is certain is that the investigation into Miljan's murder was unsuccessful. At first, there was one suspect, but the suspicion against him turned out to be unfounded. Unfortunately, no further details are available. In 2003, the case was temporarily closed. It looked like the Miljan Grujičić case would become a cold case. In an online forum post, a user writes about the nightclub Madonna. You have to decide for yourself whether you want to go in there, after the owner was executed with a shot to the head right in front of the door. During the police raid that followed, 17 people were found carrying live firearms. Whether this last claim is true is uncertain. There are no online sources to confirm it. Even after Miljan's murder, things at the nightclub did not always go smoothly. In 2004, 2 years after Miljan's death, the area around Madonna had to be evacuated on a large scale. A professionally built bomb was found near the club. Unfortunately, it was never determined who was responsible, or whether Madonna was the intended target. At some point in the 2000s, Madonna closed. In 2014, the case of Miljan briefly resurfaced in the media after another violent incident occurred near Banoff Street, where Madonna had been located. 12 men attacked guests and staff at another nightclub while it was open. This incident happened on September 14, 2004 at Club Scala. It was located at Banoff Street 16, exactly where Madonna had once stood. However, the police only learned about the violent attack much later. A guest who had been present sent an anonymous letter to the police describing the incident. The informant claimed that members of the Hells Angels, a motorcycle club with Turkish backgrounds, were involved. The letter also included photos of some of the suspected individuals. Unfortunately, the police were never able to determine who the victims or perpetrators were, as all witnesses refused to testify and did not cooperate with the investigation. It was said that Club Scala, which now occupied Madonna's former location, was mainly popular among Turkish guests, whereas in the 2000s, the club had primarily attracted people from the former Yugoslavia. Articles about the 2014 incident referenced Miljan Grujićic's case again. They mentioned that Madonna had been linked to what they called the Serbian Mafia at the time. Since Club Scala was run by different people than Madonna, it seemed unlikely that the 2014 incident was connected to Miljan's murder. 8 years later, in 2022, the murder of Miljan Grujić was reopened. The police had received new leads regarding possible masterminds and shooters. The information was so specific that investigators not only resumed their work, but also reached out to the German crime show Aktenzeichen XY, which means in English, File Number XY. In this show, the case is broadcast in front of a large audience, and viewers are encouraged to contact the police if they have any further information. The case was featured on the program in February 2024. As part of the broadcast, inspectors searched for multiple witnesses. Between the time the alarm was raised and the arrival of the police, a dark, older station wagon was seen driving away from the back courtyard of Madonna, the crime scene. 2 adults were reportedly sitting in the front, with at least 1 child in the back seat. The police were looking for this family as witnesses. They could have been guests of the nearby bowling alley or restaurant, or perhaps visiting friends or relatives in one of the apartment buildings. It was crucial for investigators to find out if these 3 people had seen anything or anyone in the courtyard on the evening of November 23, 2002. Even while Aktenzeichen XY was still airing, the first promising tip-offs started coming in. In total, around 20 tips were received following the broadcast. One lead pointed to the red light district. According to the police, this theory aligns with Miljan's background, making it seem credible. A media report from September 2024 stated that investigators were still analyzing the tips from the Aktenzeichen XY episode. The public prosecutor's office offered a reward of €10,000 for information leading to the perpetrator's arrest. So far, there's been no arrest or indictment, but it appears that the police are closing in on the suspects. The fact that authorities are still reviewing the tips from Aktenzeichen XY gives hope. After all, the information provided must be valuable enough to warrant extensive investigations. Regardless of what kind of business Miljan was involved in, he was once someone's son, someone's friend, and later someone's husband. There are still people who want nothing more than for this murder to be solved, and maybe that will happen soon. Let me know in the comments what you think about this case. Your interaction also helps the channel, as engagement increases the chances of the video being recommended to people who haven't subscribed to Truthscape yet. Thanks in advance. In the next case, the nurse Elizabeth becomes a notorious serial killer. Her multiple murders will leave you speechless. Click here to see the video. Until next time, stay safe.